On a dark, deserted highway, Hollywood star Keanu Reeves finds himself stranded with a broken-down Mustang. A humble mechanic's simple act of kindness ignites a chain reaction of betrayal, danger, and redemption. Will integrity triumph over greed? Watch to find out, and don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe for more incredible stories. A fateful night on the highway. The night was cold and unforgiving as the black 1967 Mustang barreled down a desolate stretch of the California highway. The road was a dark, unending ribbon under the pale glow of the moon, stretching on for miles without a single soul in sight. Inside the car, Keanu Reeves gripped the steering wheel with one hand, while his other hand adjusted the worn leather jacket he'd had for years. The car, his personal pride and joy, purred with a low, throaty growl, a sound as familiar to him as his own heartbeat. But suddenly, without warning, the engine coughed and sputtered, and the Mustang's roar died to a sickening silence. Keanu furrowed his brow and coasted to the side of the road, his headlights flickering before cutting out completely. Cursing under his breath, he tried the ignition again, but all he got in return was a dull click. The car refused to budge. "Great," he muttered, running a hand through his unruly hair. "Just great." He pulled out his phone to call for help, but there was no signal. Of course not. Why would there be in the middle of nowhere? He leaned back in his seat and stared up at the sky through the cracked windshield, feeling oddly alone despite his fame. Most celebrities would have an entourage, assistants, and drivers ready to fix any inconvenience, but not Keanu. He preferred solitude, the open road, the hum of the engine, the sense of freedom. Tonight, though, that freedom left him stranded. He glanced around and noticed a faint glow far off in the distance. Squinting, he could make out a faded, flickering neon sign. Jim's Auto Repair, open late. It was the only sign of life on this god-forsaken highway. With a reluctant sigh, Keanu locked his car and began the long walk toward the light. Inside the dimly lit garage at the garage, Daniel Carter wiped his greasy hands on an old rag, muttering under his breath about how the world had moved on from mechanics like him. His garage was a relic, a forgotten place barely scraping by as people flocked to fancy, modern service centers. Bills piled up on his cluttered desk, a constant reminder of the foreclosure notice looming over his head. He had poured his soul into this place, 15 years of sweat, labor, and love for machines. But now it seemed like the world was ready to bury his dream. His assistant, Maya, popped her head around the corner, her eyes tired and worried. "Still nothing from the bank?" she asked. Daniel shook his head, throwing the rag onto the workbench. "Nah, looks like we might be closing up for good." Suddenly, the bell over the door chimed, and both of them turned to see a tall figure stepping inside. Daniel squinted against the dim light, and his eyes widened just a fraction. The man before him was undeniably familiar, though not in the way Daniel could immediately place. The stranger looked like he'd been walking for miles. Jeans dusty, leather jacket battered, hair tousled by the wind. Keanu offered a polite, almost sheepish smile. "Hey, I could use a little help," he said, his voice calm but with a hint of frustration. Daniel hesitated, glancing at the old clock on the wall. It was well past closing time, and he was exhausted. But something in the man's voice, a raw honesty, made him nod. "What's the problem?" he asked, wiping the sweat from his forehead. "Car's about a mile back. Won't start. I think it might be the fuel pump," Keanu replied. Daniel gave a small chuckle. "That'd do it. Let me grab my tools." As they walked back to the car, Keanu couldn't help but notice how worn down the garage looked. Rusted signs, cracked windows, and tools that had seen better days. Daniel moved with a slight limp, favoring his left leg, and it didn't take long for Keanu to realize that this place was hanging on by a thread. The repair that changed a life back at the Mustang, Daniel popped the hood and whistled softly. "A classic beauty," he muttered. "Haven't seen one of these in years. You rebuilt her yourself?" Keanu nodded, leaning against the fender. "Yeah, she's my escape, I guess. Been with me through some rough patches." As Daniel worked, they made small talk, mostly about cars and old engines. Keanu noticed how Daniel's eyes lit up when he talked about carburetors and torque, how his hands moved with a practiced, almost loving touch. This wasn't just a job to him. It was an art form. Eventually, the conversation shifted to the garage and how business had been slow. Daniel sighed, wiping grease off his hands. People don't care about little places like mine anymore. They want fast, cheap, and flashy. I can't compete with the big chains. The bank's breathing down my neck. I got maybe a month before they close me down. Keanu listened intently, not just nodding, but genuinely engaging with the story. He wasn't used to people being this open with him. He liked it. There was a raw honesty in Daniel that reminded him of himself, someone just trying to survive in a world that moved too fast and left too many behind. When the Mustang finally roared back to life, Daniel straightened up with a tired grin. "Good as new," he said. Keanu took out his wallet, but Daniel waved him off. "No charge," he said almost stubbornly. Keanu frowned. "You sure?" Daniel gave a weary smile. "Next time your car breaks down, just remember Jim's Auto Repair." Keanu chuckled softly, his eyes thoughtful. "I won't forget," he said, shaking Daniel's hand firmly. An unexpected visitor. The next morning, Daniel groggily dragged himself out of bed, his back aching from another restless night. Maya's frantic voice on the phone jolted him awake. "Daniel, get to the shop. You're not going to believe this," she said breathlessly. Confused and still half asleep, Daniel hurried to the garage, only to find two sleek black SUVs parked outside and a small crowd gathered. His heart pounded as he spotted Keanu Reeves leaning against one of the cars, wearing the same worn leather jacket and a quiet smile. Daniel froze, unsure what was happening. Keanu walked up to him, clapping a hand on his shoulder. "Morning," he greeted. "Got a minute?" Uh, yeah, sure," Daniel stammered, still in shock. Keanu gestured toward the SUVs. "Come with me. There's something I want to show you." As they drove away, Daniel's mind raced with questions. Where were they going? Why were there so many cars? And most of all, why was Keanu Reeves, a Hollywood superstar, giving him so much attention? The road stretched out before them, and Daniel couldn't help but feel that whatever was coming next would change his life forever. Rise and fall. The SUV cruised down the bustling streets of Los Angeles as Daniel sat uncomfortably in the passenger seat, trying to process what was happening. Keanu glanced at him, clearly amused by his confusion. "You know," Daniel muttered, "this is how horror movies start. Stranger picks you up, takes you to an unknown place." Keanu laughed. "Nah, nothing creepy here. Just trust me." They pulled up to a sleek, modern building, a sprawling, state-of-the-art auto shop with glass walls and polished chrome accents. The sign above read, "Carter and Reeves Customs," in bold, gleaming letters. Daniel's jaw dropped. "What? What is this?" Keanu turned to him with a grin. "Your new garage." Daniel stumbled backward, shaking his head. "No way! This can't be real." Keanu put a hand on his shoulder. "It is. You helped me when you didn't have to. I see something in you, someone who loves what they do and does it with pride. That's rare. You deserve this." Maya, who had followed in her old pickup, joined them, her eyes wide with awe. "Daniel, this place it's unbelievable." Inside, the garage was an automotive paradise. Hydraulic lifts, advanced diagnostic tools, high-end restoration equipment. A fully stocked parts warehouse stretched out in the back, gleaming under bright, efficient lighting. Daniel could barely breathe. Keanu handed him a set of keys. "I want you to run it. Make it yours. Do what you love, your way." The grand opening news spread like wildfire. The grand opening was a media spectacle, with cameras flashing and interviewers fighting for a quote from Keanu. But Keanu made sure to steer the spotlight onto Daniel, talking about his passion, his dedication, and how this shop wasn't just about cars, but about people. Customers started lining up, not just for repairs, but to see the legendary garage itself. Classic car owners, Hollywood celebrities, and gearheads alike flocked to Carter and Reeves Customs. Business was booming, and Daniel finally had the chance to do what he loved, without the constant worry of bills and debt. Keanu remained a silent partner, often seen hanging around the garage, talking to customers, and lending a hand when needed. He didn't want credit, he just wanted to support his friend. The shop became a hotspot for enthusiasts, and it wasn't long before they were getting calls from famous car collectors and producers wanting custom work. Success breeds envy. With the sudden rise to fame and success, Titan Automotive, a massive car manufacturing corporation, took notice. The CEO, Howard Graves, a shrewd and power-hungry businessman, couldn't stand the idea of a small-time garage stealing his clientele. He sent his right-hand man, Victor Kane, to make an offer. One afternoon, while Daniel was working on a 1969 Chevy Camaro, Victor walked in, his Italian leather shoes clicking against the concrete floor. "Mr. Carter," he greeted, extending a manicured hand. "I represent Titan Automotive. We'd like to discuss an opportunity." Daniel wiped his hands and raised an eyebrow. "Opportunity?" Victor smiled, handing over a sleek portfolio. "Titan Automotive would like to acquire Carter and Reeves Customs. We're prepared to offer you $20 million up front. You'd remain in charge, of course, but under the Titan brand." Daniel glanced at the numbers. More money than he'd ever seen in his life. Maya, standing nearby, looked at him, her eyes skeptical. Daniel took a deep breath, handing the portfolio back. "No thanks, honey," he said. "This shop means something to me. It's not for sale." Victor's smile faltered, and his tone became icy. "You're making a mistake. Titan doesn't take no lightly." Daniel stayed firm. "I built this place from the ground up. I'm not handing it over to some soulless corporation." Victor's face hardened as he leaned closer. "You'll regret this, Mr. Carter. Titan always gets what it wants." The Shadow of Betrayal. Over the next few weeks, strange things began to happen. Online reviews started surfacing, accusing Carter and Reeves Customs of shoddy work and faulty parts. Social media blew up with stories about accidents caused by their supposedly dangerous repairs. Local news outlets reported on customer complaints, some even hinting at lawsuits. Daniel's heart sank as he read article after article, each more damaging than the last. Clients started canceling their appointments, and sponsors pulled their support. The shop went from being a celebrated icon to a disgraced business seemingly overnight. Late one evening, Maya rushed into the office waving a printout. "Daniel, look at this," she exclaimed. "I traced some of the IP addresses from the negative reviews. They're all linked back to Titan Automotive's PR division." Fury boiled within Daniel. "Those bastards are framing us." Keanu walked in, having overheard. "They're playing dirty," he said calmly, his voice steely. "We're not going to take this lying down." The conspiracy unravels. Determined to fight back, Daniel and Keanu pulled together a small, trusted team to dig deeper. They cross-referenced complaints with customer records and quickly found more inconsistencies. Some customers didn't exist. Others had never been to the shop. One supposed victim of a brake failure had posted a 5-star review a week earlier. Keanu had an idea. "Let's take this to the public. We'll confront them head-on." They organized a live press conference, streaming it across social media. Daniel stood before the cameras, visibly angry but resolute. "There's been a coordinated attack against Carter and Reeves Customs," he announced. "Titan Automotive is behind it, trying to destroy us because we wouldn't sell out. We have proof, real, undeniable proof." Screenshots, documents, and even secret recordings of Titan's staff admitting to the smear campaign played on the monitors behind him. The crowd erupted with questions, and journalists scrambled to verify the evidence. Within hours, Titan's stock plummeted, and the CEO, Howard Graves, was forced to issue a public statement. Legal authorities launched an investigation into corporate sabotage and fraud. The public backlash was swift and brutal. Rebuilding trust. Despite being vindicated, the damage was done. Daniel knew that regaining the community's trust would be the real challenge. Keanu suggested organizing a community day, free car checkups and repairs, to show their dedication to quality and honesty. It worked. Locals came in droves, not just to support but to connect. Celebrities who knew Keanu and trusted his integrity showed up to endorse the shop, rebuilding its reputation from the ground up. One evening, as the garage finally quieted down after a long day, Keanu and Daniel sat on the hood of the Mustang, looking at the bustling shop. "You think we made it through?" Daniel asked. Keanu nodded. "The truth always wins, even when it takes a beating first." Daniel grinned, finally allowing himself to believe they had survived the storm. Little did he know, though, that Titan Automotive wasn't done with them yet. The battle for survival. Just when Daniel thought the storm had passed, a new wave of chaos hit the shop like a sledgehammer. The news broke one morning as Daniel sipped his coffee, still savoring the victory over Titan Automotive's smear campaign. Maya burst into the office, her face pale and her hands shaking. "Daniel, you need to see this," she exclaimed, thrusting a tablet into his hands. The headline was brutal. "Carter and Reeves Customs under investigation for fatal accident. Car linked to shop involved in deadly crash." Daniel's blood ran cold as he skimmed the article. The story accused the garage of faulty repairs on a classic Mustang that allegedly caused a brake failure, leading to a horrific crash that claimed 3 lives. The media swarmed in like vultures, and the garage was suddenly under investigation by the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration, NHTSA. Keanu arrived just as the press camped outside the shop. He pulled Daniel aside, his face grim. "This is bad," Keanu muttered. "They're going for the kill this time." Daniel's mind raced. "This has to be a setup. We triple-check everything. There's no way we sent out a car with faulty brakes." Keanu nodded. "I believe you, but the public doesn't know that. Titan's using every dirty trick in the book. We need proof. Real, undeniable proof. The hunt for evidence." With the authorities on their backs and the media hounding them day and night, Daniel and Keanu decided to dig deeper. They needed the Mustang involved in the crash, but it had been impounded as part of the investigation. Keanu called in a favor from an old friend at the LAPD who discreetly provided the vehicle's last known location. Under the cover of darkness, Daniel and Keanu snuck into the impound lot. The Mustang was wrecked, twisted metal and shattered glass, but the brake assembly was still somewhat intact. As they carefully examined the remains, Daniel's expert eye caught something odd, a small metallic device attached to the brake line. "What the hell is that?" Keanu whispered. Daniel pried it loose, holding it up to the dim light. This is a remote-controlled brake disruptor. Someone sabotaged the car. They wanted it to crash." Keanu's jaw clenched. "Titan set this up to take us down for good." Daniel took photos of the device and carefully removed it. Just as they were about to leave, they heard footsteps and the unmistakable beam of a flashlight sweeping the lot. "Hey, who's out there?" a guard shouted. They ducked behind another wrecked car, holding their breath. Just as the guard approached, Keanu threw a wrench across the yard, causing a loud clang. The guard bolted in the opposite direction to investigate, giving them enough time to slip out. The unexpected betrayal. Back at the shop, Daniel examined the device in more detail, realizing it was a high-tech sabotage gadget, something only a well-funded corporation could acquire. Maya cross-referenced the part number and found that it had been sourced from a Titan Automotive supplier. Just as they were preparing to reveal their findings, Victor Kane, Titan's right-hand man, barged into the shop, flanked by 2 thugs. He smirked, clearly unfazed by their victory from the previous scandal. "You just don't learn, do you?" Victor sneered. "You should have taken the money, Carter." Daniel clenched his fists. "You're behind this accident. You killed those people just to ruin my business." Victor shrugged casually. "Collateral damage. You should have known better than to mess with Titan. You're not just a small shop anymore. You're a target." Before Daniel could respond, one of Victor's goons grabbed Maya and twisted her arm behind her back, making her yelp in pain. Keanu stepped forward, eyes blazing. "Let her go! Now!" Victor raised an eyebrow. "Or what? You gonna call the cops? By the time they get here, your little evidence will be long gone and your shop will be ashes." Just then, the roar of engines echoed from outside. A group of local car enthusiasts, customers and friends of the shop, pulled up in their modified rides, led by a former military mechanic named Eli. He was built like a tank and looked like he'd fought a few wars. "Everything okay in here?" Eli called out, sizing up Victor and his men. Victor hesitated, clearly outnumbered. He motioned to his goons to back off. "You think this is over?" he spat. "We own this town." Keanu smirked. "Not anymore." Victor sneered, shoving past Eli as he left. One of his thugs knocked over a workbench on the way out, scattering tools everywhere. The final battle, David versus Goliath. Knowing they were running out of time, Daniel and Keanu prepared for one last stand. They held a press conference exposing the brake sabotage device and its origin. Daniel showed the photos and documents, proving it came from Titan Automotive's own suppliers. The media, hungry for more drama, pounced on the story. Howard Graves issued a public denial, calling it fabricated nonsense from a failing business. But Daniel wasn't done. He had one last ace up his sleeve. At the height of the media frenzy, Keanu made a surprise announcement. He had secretly recorded Victor Kane admitting to the setup during their confrontation in the shop. The recording went viral, and suddenly the tide turned. Investigators raided Titan's headquarters, seizing documents and arresting Victor on charges of conspiracy, murder, and corporate sabotage. With public sentiment now squarely on Carter and Reeves' Customs side, Daniel finally felt the weight lift off his shoulders. The lawsuits were dropped, and the NHTSA cleared the shop of any wrongdoing. The final blow to Titan. But the drama wasn't over. A class action lawsuit emerged against Titan Automotive, driven by families of the victims of the stage crash. Howard Graves was forced to resign in disgrace, and the corporation's stock plummeted. Employees who had been silenced by fear started speaking out, exposing even more dirty tactics. Titan Automotive crumbled under the weight of its corruption. Back at the shop, Daniel and Keanu took a moment to breathe, reflecting on how close they came to losing everything. Maya, nursing a bruised arm but smiling, put her hand on Daniel's shoulder. "You saved us," she whispered. Daniel shook his head. "We saved each other." Keanu just gave his trademark quiet grin. You don't mess with good people and expect to come out on top. The road to recovery. With their names cleared and Titan's downfall complete, Carter and Reeves Customs became more popular than ever. Clients returned in droves, and the shop became a community symbol of resilience and integrity. Donations poured in for the families affected by the crash, and Daniel set up a foundation to support victims of corporate negligence. One evening, after the shop had closed for the night, Daniel and Keanu sat on the hood of the Mustang, sipping cold beers and looking out at the city lights. "We did it," Daniel said, his voice thick with relief. Keanu smiled. "You know, some battles aren't fought with fists. They're fought with heart." Daniel raised his bottle. "To fighting with heart." Keanu clinked his bottle against Daniel's. "To never giving up." The garage lights flickered on in the dark, shining brightly like a beacon of hope. A reminder that truth and kindness could stand tall even in the face of power and greed. Redemption and legacy. Months passed since the fall of Titan Automotive, and Carter and Reeves Customs had become more than just a garage. It was a symbol of resilience and integrity. The shop's reputation soared as stories of Daniel's struggle and triumph spread far beyond Los Angeles. People flocked from all corners of the country, eager to support the man who stood up to corporate greed and won. The garage became a buzzing hub of life and energy. Car enthusiasts, mechanics, and even celebrities came not just for repairs, but for the sense of community that had blossomed there. Daniel, Maya, and the team worked tirelessly, but now it wasn't just about survival. It was about building something lasting. Keanu remained a constant presence, more of a partner and friend than a silent backer. Though he stayed out of the spotlight, his quiet encouragement never wavered. The anniversary and the unexpected challenge. Exactly 1 year after the scandal broke, Daniel planned a celebration, a rebirth anniversary for the shop. Food trucks, live music, and car enthusiasts filled the lot, and the atmosphere was one of triumph and unity. Just as the party reached its peak, an unfamiliar man walked through the crowd, a tall, rugged figure with piercing eyes and a confident swagger. He approached Daniel with a slow, deliberate stride. "Mr. Carter," he greeted, extending his hand. "Name's Franklin Burke. You probably haven't heard of me, but I've heard plenty about you." Daniel hesitated, sensing something off. "Nice to meet you. Enjoying the party?" Franklin smirked. "I didn't come to party. I came to offer you a deal." Daniel's stomach tightened. "I'm not interested in deals." Franklin chuckled, ignoring the dismissal. "You're famous now. Your story's plastered everywhere. My partners and I have a proposition. You franchise Carter and Reeves Customs nationwide. We handle logistics and capital. You just give the name and the story." Daniel frowned. "I'm not interested in making this place a corporate machine." Franklin's eyes narrowed. "You could make millions, help more people, build a legacy." Before Daniel could respond, Keanu appeared, stepping protectively to his side. "He said he's not interested." Franklin raised his hands in mock surrender. "Fair enough. But think about it, Carter. Your fame won't last forever. Cash out while you're on top." As Franklin walked away, Keanu looked at Daniel, sensing his uncertainty. "You okay?" Daniel shrugged. "I'm just tired of people thinking everything has a price tag." Keanu gave him a reassuring nod. "They don't get it. This isn't just a business. It's your soul. A new purpose." The following weeks were hectic. The franchise offer loomed over Daniel's mind like a storm cloud, but something deeper was bothering him. One evening, while working late on an old Pontiac GTO, he heard a familiar voice behind him. "Hey," Keanu greeted, handing him a cup of coffee. "You've been quiet lately." Daniel leaned against the car, wiping grease off his hands. "I guess I'm just tired of fighting. First Titan, now guys like Franklin. It feels like every time I find peace, something else comes up." Keanu smiled. "That's life, man. The minute you stop moving, someone tries to take your place. You've got to decide what you really want." Daniel thought about it, his eyes drifting over the shop. "This place is home. I don't want it to become just another brand. I want it to mean something." Keanu nodded thoughtfully. "Then maybe it's time to focus on giving back. You beat the giants. You showed people what integrity looks like. Now teach them how to build their own legacies." Daniel's eyes lit up. "You mean training mechanics?" Keanu grinned. "Not just that. Train them to fight for what they believe in. Give them skills, but also teach them to stand tall. The legacy lives on Inspired. Daniel started the Carter and Reeves Workshop program, a free apprenticeship and mentorship initiative. Young mechanics from underprivileged backgrounds came to learn not only about engines and transmissions, but about integrity and craftsmanship. Veterans looking to reintegrate into civilian life found purpose working with their hands. The program became a cornerstone of the community, and soon other garages around the country wanted to replicate the model. Not as a franchise, but as an alliance of independent shops standing up against corporate control. The motto, "Build with integrity, live with honor." Franklin Burke reappeared one day, hearing about the movement spreading across the country. He gave a half smile, finally seeing the vision Daniel had created. Without a word, he gave a respectful nod and left, knowing that Daniel's legacy wasn't something he could buy or replicate. The final trial. Just when it seemed like everything was falling into place, news broke that Howard Graves, the former CEO of Titan Automotive, had been acquitted on a technicality. Despite mountains of evidence, his high-powered lawyers found a loophole, and the charges were dropped. Furious protests erupted, and social media was ablaze with outrage. One evening, as Daniel and Keanu were locking up, Graves himself showed up, arrogant, smug, and untouchable. "You think you've won?" Graves sneered. "I'm still here. Titan is still alive, and your little garage doesn't change that." Daniel didn't rise to the bait. He just looked at Graves with calm, unwavering resolve. "You don't get it, do you?" Daniel said. "It was never just about beating you. It was about proving that honesty and integrity mean something. You lost the public's trust. You're just a shell now, rich but empty." Graves scoffed, turning away, but Keanu called after him. "You can't buy back what you've lost, Graves. One day you'll realize it's not about money. It's about respect." Graves paused, shoulders stiffening, before walking away without another word. It was the last they ever saw of him. A legacy that never fades. Years passed, and Carter and Reeves Customs became legendary, a symbol of integrity in a world where greed often won. The alliance of independent garages grew, creating a network of honest mechanics who supported each other and their communities. Daniel became more than a mechanic. He became a leader, a mentor, and an inspiration. And Keanu? He remained by his side, quietly encouraging, always reminding him to keep moving forward. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, Daniel and Keanu sat on the hood of the Mustang, watching the lights of the city blink to life. "Funny how a broken-down car changed everything," Daniel mused. Keanu chuckled. Life's like that. Sometimes the breakdown leads to the breakthrough. Daniel raised his beer, and Keanu clinked his bottle against it. To never giving up, Daniel said. To building something real, Keanu replied. As the stars appeared overhead, they knew one thing was certain. Kindness, integrity, and hard work weren't just business practices. They were the foundation of a legacy that would never fade. The final message, the ripple of kindness. The story didn't just end with Daniel and Keanu. Their message spread like wildfire, inspiring people everywhere to do better, live honestly, and fight for what they believed in. Because sometimes one act of kindness, fixing a car on a lonely road, could change the world.